You will never develop any real personal or spiritual growth without facing your shadow. So most people are unaware of their shadow and it stays buried within them whilst creating a lot of problems in their life. So in order to grow, we have to recognize and embrace the darkest parts of ourselves. So what is the shadow? Psychologist Carl Jung first coined the term shadow to refer to the hidden dark side of the human psyche. So I'm going to share one of his quotes with you. He said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. At all counts, it forms an unconscious snag thwarting our most well-meant intentions. The shadow is the unconscious and disowned parts of our personalities that the ego fails to see, acknowledge, and accept. They're in your personality, but you're blind to them because you don't want to see them. And so our shadow is formed in childhood as a byproduct of certain interactions that we had with the people closest to us. So our caretakers make us believe that certain aspects of ourselves are good and others are not. And the aspects that are seen as bad are rejected and consequently form the shadow. So an example of this would be like a 5-year-old boy that's upset and he's crying. And his father's yelling at him, telling him to stop crying because boys don't cry. So as a result, that boy then learns to hide his sensitive emotional side and begins acting tough. And then as an adult, he has trouble feeling things and will not show his emotions even when it's required. And because of that, he has problems in his relationships, never allowing himself to be fully seen. So the things we don't deal with get suppressed, we push them down. The more we suppress, the more we're pushing down deep inside of ourselves. And when the shadow's being suppressed by the ego, it has no choice but to make itself known by acting out, projecting itself onto the world. So I'm going to share with you the effects of ignoring your shadow. When you ignore it, your shadow will find ways to make you aware that it exists. And this can lead to issues like self-loathing or poor self-esteem, self-deceit and deceiving others, anxiety and depression, offensive behavior towards others, struggling to have healthy relationships with others, self-sabotage, self-absorption, an inflated ego, talk negatively about themselves, and drug and alcohol abuse. So how to spot the shadow within you? Here are 3 ways to spot your shadow in action. The first way is projection. Many people project their issues onto others. When they dislike something in themselves, they point it out in others. And we often project our repressed anger, guilt, shame, and other things that we don't like about ourselves. Now, the second way is triggers. A trigger is a reminder of past trauma. So when we are triggered and we're having an emotional reaction to something, that is your shadow. So your triggers will show you your wounds and your shadow self easily. So pay attention when you're having an emotional reaction, when you're being triggered. And the third way is patterns. Repeating patterns in our lives point us to aspects of our shadow. Patterns are expressions of the shadow. And within these patterns, you will find aspects of your shadow self that will keep showing up in different situations until you are ready to look at them and break the cycle. So an example of this would be like an inability to set boundaries. I had that problem. I wasn't good at setting boundaries. And through doing shadow work, I learned it's because I was this people pleaser. I had the people pleasing mentality. And the people pleasing mentality stemmed from an abandonment wound from childhood. So I've learned to heal my abandonment wound. I've learned to shed people pleasing out of my identity. And I'm now someone that can set boundaries. Another pattern that was playing out that was linked to the abandonment wound was I kept attracting in narcissistic men. So pay attention to your patterns in your life because those are the clues to what needs to be healed within you. So what is shadow work? Shadow work is a form of personal development that delves into the unconscious mind. It's the process of exploring and uncovering the darkest parts of your subconscious mind. We have to make the unconscious conscious. We have to bring the darkness into the light. So shadow work is a crucial step in everyone's journey of self-discovery and personal growth. In order to become our highest self, we must learn to look at ourselves in our entirety and accept the whole picture. So this includes embracing our darkest self. And so the goal of shadow work is to integrate our shadow. So what does integrating your shadow mean? It means becoming aware of the suppressed or repressed subconscious attributes of your personality, to bring them to your consciousness and learn to accept them and manage your impulses that you usually ignore, such as anger or greed. That is how you integrate your shadow. So how do we do shadow work? The first step is to revisit your childhood. So like I said earlier in the video, our shadow was formed in childhood. So this is why we have to go back to our childhood. We have to dig things up. We have to look at what sort of traumas we experienced, or how our parents treated us. So that's the first place you want to start. Now the second step is to use your triggers. So your triggers are the clues to what needs to be healed within you. When you find yourself being triggered and you're having an emotional reaction, work with it. It's trying to teach you something. You can use emotional inquiry, like, why did this make me react like this? Why does this make me feel this way? Question it, dig into it, and then it will lead you to the wounds that needs to be healed within you. And be intentional about noticing your own reactions as well. Now the third step is journaling. So keep a shadow work journal. And what I personally do is whenever I notice I have an emotional reaction to something, I work with it straight away and I'll start journaling on it. And you can even use shadow work journal prompts if you don't know where to start with journaling. So these are basically questions that you just write out at the top, and then you just start writing to that question. And I've already made a video with shadow work journal prompts that I'll link at the end of this one that you can use to get yourself started with journaling. But yeah, I find personally for me, I have the emotional reaction, I work with it straight away, I start journaling, and by the time I finish journaling, I literally feel like I've just had this therapy session. It's very therapeutic. And so my own questions will come up. Like, you can use the shadow work prompts, but I find as I'm journaling, my own questions pop in my mind. So I write the question down and I continue to journal to that question. So you might find the same thing for you. You might start journaling and then the question just pops in your mind. So work with it. Whatever's popping up in your mind, work with it and keep journaling it out. And journaling is a really great way to get your thoughts and feelings out of your body, out of your system and onto paper. That is why I feel like I've had a therapy session. I walk away feeling so much better by letting it out on paper. So use journaling. It's a great tool. Now, number 4 is meditation. Use meditation to relax your inner self, and it will help you to gain answers about your behavior. You can ask your shadow questions, meditate on the question, and wait for an answer to pop up. You can even use the shadow work journal prompts. You can meditate on them and wait for an answer to pop up. You can use meditation as a way to become aware of your thoughts, your feelings and emotions, because we have these thought patterns and emotional patterns and behavioral patterns that are running on autopilot that we're, unaware of. And awareness is key. Awareness is 90% of transformation. So use meditation as a way just to become more aware of yourself, more aware of your thoughts and feelings. Now, the 5th step is to observe without judgment. Now, it's really important that you don't judge your shadow. Don't reject it, don't shame it, don't blame it. It's already been rejected, that's why it's the shadow, right? So we want to acknowledge our shadow and accept it with love and compassion. Now, before I end this video, I'm going to leave you with one last important step, and that is to reframe your shadow. So what I mean by reframe your shadow is to find something positive about your shadow. So instead of seeing it in a negative way, you're able to switch it to something that's positive. So for example, I mentioned that I had the abandonment wound. So the positive that came from the abandonment wound was that I learned to be an independent person. I'm someone that can stand on my own 2 feet. I can look after myself, which means I don't need to rely on other people. And because I don't need to rely on others, I'm not needy. It also taught me to enjoy my own company. And because I enjoy my own company, I'm not needy for people, which therefore means I can be selective when it comes to friendships and relationships. So that's a great way to finish up shadow work, is to find something positive about your shadow. That is how you do shadow work on your own, but there is also the option of working with a therapist that specializes in shadow work. Now, shadow work is a journey. It's not something that just happens overnight, right? This is a journey, healing is a journey, and it's something that you can be doing for the rest of your life. And I don't mean consistently, you can do it on and off, you know what I mean? But there's always parts of ourselves that we can improve. And shadow work can get ugly. I just want to point that out and warn you that, you know, we're revisiting these terrible things that happen to us, our traumas, you know, the negative things that happen in childhood. So it's going to get ugly. So be kind to yourself, treat yourself with love and compassion, and just know that this is really important work you're doing. And going through the darkness will lead to the light. It will lead to something so much better on the other side. That is why it is worth doing. So I hope you like this video, guys. If you got some sort of value, let me know by giving me a thumbs up or write a comment. I'm going to drop the video here that will teach you shadow work journal prompts that you can use to get you started. These are really great prompts to work with, so I highly recommend checking that video out. Have an awesome day. Peace.